What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to Exploring Attractions. My name is Scott, and you're watching your stop for all things theme park and attraction related. Hey, if you're new here, subscribe with those bell notifications on, and leave this video a like because it helps with the channel a whole lot. But a very exciting video today, and we are very grateful to Universal Studios for allowing us to come do this. We're taking a behind-the-scenes tour of La Llorona right behind me, and of course the Universal Horror Hotel. So this video is going to be kind of mixed with commentary from myself, Murdy, full of pictures. Like, it's going to be kind of all over the place, but we're going to take you inside these two haunted houses. So without further ado, let's get into it. And like I said, huge shout out to Universal and huge shout out to you guys, because without you guys, we wouldn't be able to do something like this. So let's go check out, first and foremost, the Universal Horror Hotel. Alright, everybody, we're kicking things off with, of course, the pre-show aspect to the Hollywood Horror Hotel. Now, John talked a lot about how the actual old Walking Dead queue is utilized as setting up the animated pre-show. So there's going to be kind of like a corny video being played, which is intentional for it to be corny, and then it will lead into, obviously, the pre-show that we see here with an elevator scene that it drops the girl as the elevator drops down. So it's a really neat pre-show idea, something that sets up the house perfectly, or at least the feeling and the vibe of the house. He did mention that they're really focusing on pre-shows this year, whether it just be like a projection on a facade or even like some form of video. They are really focusing on stuff like that.
2020, obviously Horror Nights was canceled. Everybody was bummed. 2021, we just didn't know what was going to happen. So we took a more conservative approach in the number of houses we had. And now this year, without, the restrictions in place and everything, we're like, okay, let's go. And it's back to, trying to take this thing to the next level. So what we're focusing on, a couple of the areas is trying to step up our scenic, and you'll see that across the board in all the facades and the scenic design of all these houses. But we're also trying to really take a big step forward in special effects. We have a new special effects person working with us now. He comes to us with a hell of a lot of experience, and he worked for us as a freelancer back on Universal Monsters in 2018. And he's the guy who did the lab with all those LED lights, and he's got a huge knowledge of LED technology. And we're also partnering with our own internal technical services group. We've found there's a whole bunch of Horror Nights fanatics in that group. And these are guys who are like mechanical engineers who deal with the Harry Potter ride and Jurassic World, and they're dealing with animatronics all the time. And they came to us and said, hey, we'd like to do some stuff for Horror Nights. And we're like, cool, let's go. So this is one of the things they built for us with David, our special effects guy. So when this moment happens, this kind of paranormal moment, and we light through and you see her in there, there's a struggle sequence where she's kicking her legs, and then you see her body drop and then swing back and forth. So kind of a different level of animated effects than we've done in the past.
We, of course, move into our very first scene, and that's the bathroom scene, where we see Mildred in a bathtub. Now, this scene in specific looks really neat, and the reason being is because right off the bat, you are absolutely spooked with how terrifying this creature is. So when we walked in there, Murdy was like, oh, look, here's the prop right here. Let me lift it up for you guys. And then as soon as he lifted it up, everybody was just shocked. Everyone was like, oh my goodness, that thing is scary, and that does not look like something that you'd want to see in your bathroom. But he does talk a little bit about how they have a neat effect to where bubbles are going to be coming out of the bath, and fog, water-based fog that is, because they can't set off the fire alarm in a Walking Dead attraction, which then would lead to the Starbucks building, etc., etc. This is going to be a really neat scene because of how detailed it is, and I think that Mildred character right there is absolutely terrifying.
The effect that we could have that would repeat, because the way poor Mildred died here is she loves the radio, and she loves listening to the radio, and unfortunately the radio fell into her tub and electrocuted her. Of course, that was Maxie. That's how he got rid of his mother-in-law. So he came up with a whole water-based fog system for this. There's a blackout performer obviously behind here that's raising and lowering our friend. And then she has a compressed air water spritz that she blasts you. So all of the set deck in here, all the props and dressing, this is all part of our props team that do all of this. I write it all in the treatment, and they have to go find it and source it. But the kind of the bigger inspiration was, did you guys see that Netflix documentary on the Hotel Cecil? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I was like, oh, that's a great story. And, it's so creepy. And then, in a certain way, Devil in the White City, which is about America's first serial killer. It's a famous book. It's supposed to be a movie like 10 years ago, but I think it's actually being made now. But that's about Holmes, which was America's allegedly first serial killer. But I like the idea of a guy who would build a hotel just to kill people. I thought that was cool. So we kind of, took some inspiration from that.
There are quite a bit of transition hallways in this, not black walls, and Murdy did stress that a lot, especially when we were walking through La Llorona, that there's going to be no black walls this year, or at least very minimal. He doesn't like doing black walls. He wants it to be more scenic. But the only reason why there's longer transition hallways, and this one in specific, is because of the fact that there's more permanent hallways in the Walking Dead attraction. Hallways that it's not so easy to take down. So they just reutilized it and instead made them like themed transition hallways. But that's the only reason why they are still around, like as far as the transitional hallways go, is because they're actual permanent hallways that it's not very easy for them to move. After we move out of the bathroom scene, we move into our very first bedroom scene, which is of course a bedroom that is burning up. So there's a really neat effect in here, as there's different walls in this room that are going to be using the scrim effect. And that scrim effect will help out to let guests visualize the room burning. Obviously there's a charred body on the bed. There's lots of detail in this one just as well as the first one, but I think it's really neat how they're going to be using that kind of scrim effect. There's a lot of special effects this year that they're using, and John touched up on that a lot, that they are really diving in deep to special effects. So I think that this effect will be pulled off very well. He even talked about how they still need to make the bed look like it's charred and has been burnt up. So they've already done that with the body, obviously, and I'm sure there's still a lot more work to do as far as the bed goes and as far as the entire room goes. And then, of course, it'll be a lot different seeing it during the nighttime with the effect actually being put in place.
And then Lillian is the scare here, and she comes out through that curtain over there. But the whole room transforms, or these two big, huge walls do. So when you come in here, all of a sudden it changes, and it's all lit like it's fiery, and she comes busting into the scene. And then you're going to see a lot of old radios in this thing, because that's what we're trying to do with the music, is keep it as a thread going through.
Is there a significance of the 302 on the door, or in here, or?
No, actually, my prop people were like, what room numbers should we, and I'm like, I don't know, make it the 300 series.
Of course, after that, we move into the kitchen scene where we'll see a live performer as she's making a unique dish, and this unique dish is a mixture of vegetables and human body parts. Now, along this house, we'll see different modern-day hotel guests, and we saw one earlier that I showed you guys that was the toothbrush was shoved in her eye, the hotel key, that was a modern day hotel guest. Well, there's a modern day hotel guest in this kitchen as well, laying there on the table. And then there's a really unique scare in here as well, coming from one of the cabinets that is definitely going to drop people. Like, it will scare the living crap out of people, where they're, like I said, they get dropped and they are on the floor absolutely terrified, which I'll let Murray take away.
It's all my special effects guy's been here. That's an LED strip. What he's doing is he's going to make the gas burners glow, and he's changing these out because these are electric. We're like, damn it, we need gas. So he's going to switch them out, and he's got a little mini water-based fogger in here, so we get that weird glow. And then this is going to be the cook that was asphyxiated in the oven, and on this counter is this food that she's making that is like body parts mixed with like vegetables. It's just disgusting. And she's chop, 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 humming away, and then she turns when you come in the room, and then one of the modern day guests is dead in his cereal, and then Maxie busts out of that big unit behind you there.
It's a good scare.
This is the
We then move into my most anticipated scene in this entire house, which is, of course, the master suite. Now, there's going to be a whole lot of stuff going on in this room. There's going to be characters all over the place, whether it be just a character on the bed, a character on the couch, a character jumping out at you. There's going to be so much going on in this scene, and you can definitely tell that with how big this room is. I think that that's one of the things that having a house in the Walking Dead attraction benefits is you can create scenes like this that are so big that you wouldn't typically be able to create in a traditional Halloween Horror Nights house uncovered by a tent. This is stuff that you can pull off in a soundstage and a location like the Walking Dead attraction.
First with hallways and go, okay, that has to be a hallway, that has to be a hallway, and then figure it out around there. So kind of a unique design challenge. This is kind of like the master suite. One girl is strangled in her bed. There's another girl over here who's had her eyes gouged out. There's another dude, headless dude, sitting on the couch over there next to his head. Maxie busts out of this door. We kind of arrange it so you have to kind of go through the room like this. And then his wife Lillian attacks you at the end of the stretch. So there's 4 performers in the scene, 1, 2. The headless guy comes to life.
After that, of course, we go through a couple more transition hallways, and a lot of these photos are actually pulled straight from the Universal Studios archives, where he talked about how he had to dig deep and get some unique photos for this side, just kind of throwing it back to the olden days of Universal Studios, including the old Western Stunt Show, the old Upper Lot, stuff like that, which I thought was a really neat ad. Also, I just wanted to quickly mention, he said that on some of the newspapers that they created for the Hollywood Horror Hotel, as far as like all the headlines go and whatnot, he talked about how there's some connection between Hollywood Harry in there and just the event overall. So if you're able to snag a picture of those different articles, during the run of the event, then you can find some different connections in there. Of course, we move into a hallway which looks exactly like the one that would lead us to the prison scene in the Walking Dead attraction. This is spot on. This is another one of those hallways that you really can't knock down, so why not reutilize it? Which obviously there's going to be some super cool scares coming from different angles in here, and that leads us in to the next bedroom scene.
Running into Maxie now adorned in his pagan robes, along with some of these pagan cult members, and they all have skulls with like ram horns. The inspiration for those guys, actually, believe it or not, was the movie Dragnet from 1987 with Tom Hanks and Dan Aykroyd. There's this weird sequence where there's all these pagan guys with like goat masks, and I was like, oh, we should do something like that. So, weird case where a comedy inspired something for Horror Nights. This is Maxie's little souvenir collection.
After that, we're led into a kind of turning point where we see a cage filled with different weapons. John talked a lot about how he asked his prop team to just get as many weapons as possible to kind of have like almost an arsenal, like a cage of weapons. I think it looks cool, like just seeing all the weapons there and seeing all the weapons that this guy used to kill all his victims with. I don't know. I just think that was a neat ad. And then we move into a double scare where we have the main character on a table and she's bleeding out and everything. But what we don't know as we're looking at that main character, right behind us is another jump scare that's going to get us a complete shock, a complete surprise. We're not going to expect it at all. And I really like how they seem to be utilizing a lot of different like multiple scare acting rooms, if that makes any sense at all. Basically rooms that have multiple scare actors in them and not just one big scare, and then after that you just move into the next one.
I picked it up this dress.
Wait, I think some of our group is catching up with
Oh,
us.
okay. It's hard to see.
Well,
This
no
is
worries.
all Hollywood. The whole dress is Hollywood. It's Westwood Village, Santa Monica. It's like,
Was that made for this?
no, I found it. I found it online. I was like,
found
oh,
it
that's
online?
cool. Yeah. Yeah. I found it and sent it to our costume designer. Thought it was cool. And
Well,
then
they
this is a
kinda-
girl who's having her heart ripped out of her. So Maxie's all dressed in his pagan attire, and he's sacrificing her to his demon or his pagan god and ripping her heart out. And then the scare is coming from behind you with one of these pagan cult members. And again, the all-seeing eye.
which of course leads us into our finale scene, and one that I think is not only super cool but super creepy, I'd say. So there's tons of bodies piled up in this kind of cave looking thing, and this is going to utilize a lot of lighting effects. Well, what lighting effects may you be thinking here? Where there's actually mirrors built up behind these bodies, so it almost looks like an infinite hallway of bodies. I think that this is definitely one of the coolest effects that we're going to see in this entire haunted house, and definitely one of the coolest effects that Horror Nights has pulled off in all the years that I've been going. As soon as we walked into this area, I was like, wow, not only does that look creepy, but once he explained it, it's like that is such a unique thing for them to think about, and I can't wait to experience that with the proper lighting instead of just seeing it just with the bodies in that first room. I can't wait to see how the mirrors affect it. And then of course, Murdy opened up the Q&A box for us, a short little Q&A right after the horror hotel and right after we made our way over to La Llorona.
So you kind of touched upon it a little bit. So this is not going to be a permanent base.
This? No.
But you guys have plans to eventually tear out all the
there's nothing permanent planned for this venue right now. Not that it could change. The theme park continues to evolve and change all the time. But for us, selfishly, we want to just have it be a black box that we can use for Horror Nights. We need spaces like this. Our history has been, we're like squatters. We're in one location, then we're in a different, then we're in a different, then we're in a different. But, like with 29, which is a soundstage, and with this, which is lighting controlled indoor, we love this. So we absolutely want to, we'll use this next year for sure. Yeah, it'll be a house.
How's that soundscape? Does it get more aggressive as you continue through the house?
Yeah, the music is kind of the thread, like the 20s music. You'll hear the same music popping up kind of as a theme. It's, you know what? The honest question is I haven't mixed it yet.
Okay.
I'm mixing it supposedly, what is today? Wednesday? Okay. Some ungodly hour tomorrow. I've mixed like half of them, but I haven't mixed this one yet.
All right, everyone, so we just got out of Universal Horror Hotel, and wow, I am impressed with how creepy that house is gonna be. First of all, I was really curious to see how they were gonna utilize the Walking Dead building. Was it just empty and there was just plywood everywhere? Would it feel, eerie in there because it's all quiet and just a big black box as Murdy described it? No, they literally constructed a brand new Walking Dead. It's obviously not Walking Dead, it's Horror Hotel, but that's what it feels like. There's nothing that they're missing in there. But let's move on over to the rest of the tour with La Llorona, the Weeping Woman. So let's take a look at this beautiful facade. I love the La Llorona facade. And it's been months and months of us speculating whether or not it's going to be La Llorona, but now we obviously have confirmation that it is La Llorona, the Weeping Woman. I was so excited to step foot in this because it's my all-time favorite haunted house at Halloween Horror Nights. And number one, it was extremely hot. I feel like that was a common thing between all of us there, was how hot it was compared to obviously being in the horror hotel in an AC. But we make our way into the first scene, which is the funeral of the kid. Still super creepy, still super detailed, and I feel like this is one of the more disturbing scenes that Murdy's ever brought to life. And I think he even mentioned that the most disturbing scenes come from La Llorona that he's ever brought to life, especially having kids himself. He did say there's a couple changes in here.
Funeral for the dead children. La Llorona, there's two scenes in La Llorona that I think are some of the most disturbing scenes we've ever created for Horror Nights, and neither of them involve blood. And this is one of them. Walking into a church at night and entering a funeral for these poor dead, drowned children. It's pretty disturbing. The main thing we changed here, obviously these are the mourners and there's performers that are integrated in with them. But we wanted to redo the whole video. I think we did a shadow back in the day. But we wanted to do something that, to make you feel like you were looking out the window of the church and what would you see. So we green screened our La Llorona performer in makeup, doing her classic IMEC host line, and then we shot the background plates out in Little Mexico on the back lot. So when you're looking out this window, you actually are seeing old Mexico at night, and then La Llorona appears like a ghost and says, "Ay, mis hijos," and then disappears. And then the mourners come to life, and then La Llorona pops out of her hidden door over here. And we're changing La Llorona. When we did it 10 years ago, we did it with a full face prosthetic, and was never really happy with that because it limited the performer's ability to lip sync, and she has those signature lines. And so we're doing it all with traditional makeup now and contacts.
Then we move into kind of the black light reflective area where it was actually really cool because we could see some of the employees working on the actual, like, bringing the house to life. So they were painting the different black light. The guy had a black light stick there, and he was just like, you know, using it to do his painting, and it switched from Maria to La Llorona. And then we move into another room, and then we see, you know, the prop team just pouring wax into candles, all really caring about the detail putting into Halloween Horror Nights. And then we get to that long hallway that is always in Parisian Courtyard that typically holds a black hallway. But Murdy was very big this year on black hallways. He did not want any black walls. He wanted to do some form of scenic in there. As we all know, with Persian Courtyard, there is an always black wall section right there. Well, Murdy said a little bit something different this year.
And this year I was like, please, can we theme this and make it all scenic? Because I don't want to look at those black walls anymore. And so we did. So this is all scenic all the way now.
Right after that, we get into the neat drowning scene. I don't know why I had said that was neat, but this is also another one that Murdy said was very disturbing, bringing it to life. The only thing that they need to do is dye the water, and that's all they have left. The drowning scene looks exactly like it did in 2012. However, Murdy did show us an awesome photo of the mask sculpt that we're going to see for a new horse mask. Now, before we had the kind of horse skull and bones that was coming out of us on top of the La Llorona, you know, character popping out. Well, instead, this is more of like a bloody, drippy. I mean, John talked about how he was thinking about posting this on Twitter, but he thought he would get banned for posting it on Twitter. So that's how, like, gory it is. So there is a new sculpt for the character that we encounter, which is the essentially the horse figure. And obviously we're going to the barn and we see the different horse figures all throughout the transition hallway. So it's definitely going to be a lot more different compared to the 2012 version and the 2011 version, which I think is pretty neat.
The history of Halloween Horror Nights. And I wrote this originally before I had kids. Now I have kids. And I'm like, the last thing that needs to be done here is dyeing the water, but this gives you a really good idea, seeing it like this, of how we do this. If there's like 2 inches of water, it's all like pond liner, like you build a pond in your backyard, and then we have to dye the water. The reason we haven't dyed it yet is because times have changed since 10 years ago. There was a brown dye that we dyed the water with, and you can't get it anymore. So now we're like doing all this experiment, mixing dyes and trying to figure out what's the right combination to make it look muddy. We tried it with a different dye, and it just turned everything black. And we're like, let's try that again. So you're going to cross the river. La Llorona is coming from over there. We changed this up from before. It was a scrim illusion with a static figure, but we turned it into a live performer this time. So she comes racing out at you from over there.
And then we slowly make our way into Maria's house, where we start to see the giant La Llorona creatures, of course, eating kids. The first room, I want to say that it's a lot closer to you than it was back in the day. It was definitely a lot higher back then. Now it is extremely close, and it makes for even more of a terrifying aspect to it. Obviously, another one of those things where everybody walked into the room and they're like, oh my goodness, this is creepy as hell.
This is animated in a couple different ways. So the legs kick, but I looked at it the other night and I went, oh, okay. It'd be really cool if the head moved. And so now my special effects guy's like, I can do that. And I'm like, go for it. So he's going to make it, I don't want to mess with it because he's probably working on it, but he's going to make the head go side to side along with the kicking and everything. And this is the eater, La Llorona. And then in the next scene, we have the one that's eating the girl in the bed, ginormous.
So with the effect over there, like how you said he was working on it, is it going to be a blackout actor, or is it going to be just like he's working on some special thing to make the head move?
Oh, that's all automated. Yeah,
it's all
automated.
And then we got to this super cool effect, or not effect. Let's just say a new kind of way they're doing characters. So there's this really, really big puppet that comes out, and John was kind enough to kind of, describe and get in the suit of how it's supposed to work out, how it's supposed to pop out. But this thing is massive, everybody, like really massive. Like, he got so close to my face so when he popped the figure out, and I can only imagine how much of a close encounter you're going to get when walking through it with the giant Llorona figure. I think that this is going to be a really neat add to the house. Now, the cool thing about this figure that we're looking at right now is they're going to be testing this size of a figure throughout, like as a walk-around character, which I think is really neat. This is something that makes stilt walkers look tiny, but they're really, really going to test a whole bunch of stuff this year and see if it's going to get the axe next year, or if it's something that they're going to keep continuing to develop at HHN, which, seeing this figure in person and how massive it is and how it just works so easily with the little foot trigger at the bottom, and then obviously the character is having to be right behind it. And keep in mind, you don't even have to be that tall to control this figure, because John was too tall to control himself. I think that seeing that in a scare zone or just being a walk around character is going to look insane, and I'm super excited that they're testing something like that.
On stilts, but can open and close the mouth, can open and close the hands, LED eyes. The stunt walker inside has a helmet that controls the head, so he can make it look around, look at you. He can go all the way down, crouch all the way down, and then when he gets up, it's like we did a test with him for rehearsals the other night, and I was like terrified because he came running at me I was like, oh my god, that's the scariest thing I've ever seen. and it makes our stilt walkers look tiny. It's crazy. Wow. Like, the stilt walkers were all like jealous, they were like looking at this guy going, hey, we're not the tallest characters anymore.
Oh my gosh.
And it's just a test we're doing, so it's going to be mostly on the top deck. It's a giant crow with a black top hat. We're probably just going to have him work like the top deck area, maybe before you get to Harry Potter and that kind of general zone. We'll probably move him around. But it's just something we went to the company with and said, hey, we have an idea. It costs this much.
But I hope you guys enjoyed those two haunted houses and touring them with us. We had such a great time. Now, there were other haunted houses that were toured for media. Universal Monsters, Legends Collide, and the Horrors of Blumhouse, featuring the Black Phone and Freaky, in which our pals over at the theme park duo, Gabe and Nikki, actually were able to tour those two houses. So I highly recommend you check out their articles and their coverage down below in the description. Make sure to check it out if you want to see a sneak peek of Universal Monsters and the Horrors of Blumhouse. But as for now, let's send it back to present day Scott, or at the park Scott. I don't know how to describe it. And well, everyone, we are now wrapped up with our official behind the scenes tour with John Murdy. It was so much fun. Like I said, huge opportunity that Universal gave us, and it wouldn't be possible without you guys. So huge shout out to you guys. Wow, Universal is coming with a bang this year. Like, the detail alone and all the different scenes for La Llorona and Horror Hotel is just nuts. Like, I was so shocked with Horror Hotel and how it surprised me. It surprised me how they put that in the Walking Dead attraction and made it this new haunted house. So I'm excited for you all to experience it yourself, and I'm excited to experience it in the dark. So I can't wait, and yeah, it can't come soon enough. But if you guys are new here, consider subscribing down below with those bell notifications on. Leave this video a like if you enjoyed it. And as always, my name is Scott. You've been watching Exploring Attractions. Positivity is key. And most importantly, remember to keep exploring. Peace out, everybody.